border between the Welsh and English.
Right.
And the singing sound coming
Right.
and the bridge were all Flemish. Yeah, I'm thinking.
Yeah, no, the children.
That's why a lot of the Welsh
Children that day were playing on this sort of field area up the top here. Now, I mean, like I said earlier, I don't do filming, so I'm staying in all day. But I was just hearing these stories coming back.
You're the one who's the best Close up.
I wouldn't advise going too much closer because this really does become sodden, and apparently it's not changed since I was here in 1977. The area in which the other children had seen the UFO was around about this area, and reports have been coming in throughout the day that they've been seeing this object, which, like I said, I didn't believe one bit. So at the end of the day, I came up from my classroom, which was around about there, and walked up to the perimeter fence, which is a bit higher now than it was. It only used to stand about yay high. Started looking, there was nothing in sight whatsoever. So I started to get over the fence just at the top here, and as I was about halfway over, one leg either side of the fence, you'll see, it's a bit difficult to see because these small trees around the perimeter are starting to mature a bit now, but you'll see a large clump of trees at the back there, just before you reach the top of the hill. From behind those trees, that's where the object surfaced. Now, still sort of halfway across, I was just in total amazement, but like I said before, that's when I felt the urge to run, and ran all the way down here to the taxi that was waiting to take us home.
Yeah. Was it actually moving upwards or steady, or when you saw it, or was it off the ground, on the ground?
It came up seemingly from behind the trees. Now, there was a slight sway in motion to it. Very little motion forward, but there was a slight sway. Along the way, I don't know. I've been wanting to say it seemed like it was stuck or it was pulling something, because it seemed to be some sort of resistance. Now, as I turned, I know it went down again. I actually saw, and as far as I know, the last thing I know was when I reached the taxi at the bottom of the I looked back up and it disappeared from me altogether then. Aside from that, there's not more I can tell you. We're talking about 4 or 5 my turn was so I was going by about the same length as the bus or the trailer on an articulated lorry, which is about 45 feet. So it was a pretty good frame of reference. And I also know how pretty much how big the trees were over there, and it came just above the tree line, with the rear end. I say the rear end. There was no front and rear to it as such, but from my point of view, the right-hand side of it, the end of the craft was still obscured by trees somewhat. But I would say that I was looking at about 98% of the craft before it started to go back down and I took off. So
Dave, I can see the post sticking out the ground here. So where in relation to that post up there on the right? So you see
are we talking about the telegraph pole?
The telegraph pole on the right through the street up here.
Well, the telegraph pole, I don't know whether in fact...
Which one? Are you looking at this one here in the middle of the field? Which telegraph pole?
The one directly in front.
Yeah, in front here, yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Now, I don't know whether it was that cross piece at the time, but there'd been work done on that telegraph pole a few days before.
Okay.
They
in the middle of the field
down there. Now, they've been worked on that telegraph pole. Apparently they put new insulators in and a new cross piece.
Yeah.
Now, the cross piece was tilted at about an angle of about 45 degrees.
Okay.
No explanation has ever been offered. The electricity board or whatever were contacted, and obviously they stated that they've done some work on it. Now, I can't say that was a physical result of the vehicle being there, but there was no other explanation that they could offer. As far as they know, they put it up straight.
Right.
So,
right.
but I didn't see at all whether it had touched or.
And this craft though was near that post or up to the right.
Slightly to the left, behind the clump of mature trees you see.
Yeah.
Just past.
The post.
Just about halfway up. Yeah.
Ah, okay.
When you were talking about it having a little wobble,
Yeah.
do you think it was having trouble taking off for some reason? That's why it went back down. They're having a bit of US problems. And
That was how my mind put it at the time. Obviously, coming straight up and then a couple of seconds later coming back down after. Now, I'm not too sure if the movement was as a result of whatever precaution these things use, but there was seemingly, to my knowledge, or to the best of my, to the best of how I could work it out, it did seem as if there was some resistance as the vehicle was trying to move before it came back down. But that is me making assumptions. That's not a statement of fact. That
was
is.
it as thick with trees then? I mean, would it have
Actually, it wasn't so thick. These trees here that you see directly in front of you, and all these trees here. I mean, these trees were actually planted in 1973 because they were part of the Planted Trees for a 73 campaign that was going around. Some of the ones have died off here right in front of you. But but where the actual craft was, it wasn't much less mature than it is now.
I do think that it's really unusual that the length of time that they were all in the field and seen throughout the day. I mean, there had to be problems with the craft in order for it, because I mean, most sightings are seconds, minutes. But you know, for that to be so many hours and so many different people seeing it, so there had to be problems. Whether there's the energy lines to go through the,
I mean,
whatever.
I mean, that is a possibility. But then I've also, in more recent years, I mean, there was a case in Nigeria involving school children as well, where Zimbabwe, sorry, not Nigeria, and other cases where whoever the occupants are of this craft, there seemed to be some project involving observation of children. Now, I don't know whether there was some problem with the vehicle or whether they were just spending the day here observing children at play, children going by their daily lives or not.
The observations.
I mean, it's one of those things I can speculate on, but it is pure speculation.
Do you know when the first report of the craft was by your classmates?
To the best of my recollection, the first report started coming in round about morning break.
About half 10.
Yeah, somewhere about there. Obviously, after lunchtime, there'd been a few more.
Yeah.
But it wasn't taken seriously. I mean, people have said about whether there were teachers out there supervising us. Now, bear in mind, this is 1977. This isn't now with all its political correctness and health and safety and all that. You know, we have parents who wouldn't mind if we disappeared for 5 hours at a time. You know, they didn't worry. They just knew we were up to bother somewhere. But so there was no real supervision going on.
And no children went to the teacher and said, "Please, miss, there's something weird over there."
Yes, they did. Throughout the day, it was being mentioned to the headmaster of Llewellyn, and I assume other teachers as well. Now, but you're dealing with people who are very no-nonsense, matter-of-fact, and obviously initially they were thinking this was childish pranks, childish imagination at work. It wasn't until the following Monday, when we all got together in exam conditions and drew and described what we saw without having any chance to corroborate, that it really, that the lights came on, that, okay, maybe the teachers, or particularly the headmaster who handled this situation, maybe he didn't believe that we'd seen a UFO as what most people would imagine a UFO to be, but it very quickly dawned on him that we had seen something unusual, something we couldn't explain easily. He knew how well we could identify things, and we weren't stupid kids, you know, we were, I hate to brag, but the educational standards of children leaving primary schools was so much better than it is today with regards to common sense, and you know, we didn't have the
cotton wool.
yeah, and we didn't have the frivolous things of internet and computer games and stuff like that. So, and we weren't subjected. I read something the other day which I got quite angry about, that somebody was categorically sure that what we saw was as a result of an imagination following the release of Close Encounters in Star Wars. Absolutely convinced, he was certain of it. And he had it on good authority that this was the case. Had it not been for the fact that Close Encounters didn't come out for another year, and Star Wars, which isn't about UFOs, it's a western in space, that didn't come out for another 10 months. And I would say at the time, as kids, we would have been more interested in stuff like war films and cowboys and Indians rather than outlandish sci-fi. And as I said earlier, I had a love of sci-fi, but my love of sci-fi was the same sort of stuff that I like now, where it looks forward at a possible future for ourselves, not the sort of sci-fi that involved invaders from Mars coming down in flying saucers and wiping us out and all. So my imagination, as limited as it was, I've never been really that imaginative, it wouldn't have extended to that sort of scenario.
There was a woman in the village told us that she was adamant that all the boys made it up after seeing a Nationwide, the TV program. The night before there was a bit about UFOs, and you got the idea from that.
Now I heard that comment as well.
But then the woman in the pub said, "Oh, don't listen to her. She wouldn't believe the Grim Reaper if it stood in front of her."
Now, right, another one, which was being bandied around, was that some locals had been seen carrying a rocket-shaped object up the road past the school. Well, first of all, there's no road past the school, it goes that far, and it's a dead end, and that's a footpath that you can't drive up there at all.
There's a road up there, we can't see it.
Yeah, but there's no way you can get there with make that trip in a car. But what she was actually referring to was, a couple of days after the sighting, a local haulage contractor decided to have a laugh at the kids' expense. And we came in one morning to find this rocket-shaped object in the school playing field, about, I don't know, probably about 15 feet long, red. Now, it was said that this was supposed to have been the impetus for the story. However, what it was the local haulage contractor, having a giggle, had taken a very expensive long-range fuel tank off a jet aircraft that he was selling government surplus, and decided to plant it here as a joke because we'd seen the object. Yeah. He was intending on having it back a couple of weeks later after the joke had gone around the area. However, by which time we thanked him publicly for his donation to the school, and we were using it as a piece of playground equipment. It stood over in the corner there.
Peter mentions that in the book, doesn't he?
Yeah, it stood over there in the corner for many years. It was the pride of the school. And however, to give a good indication of how good our identifying was, the bomb squad were being called, local police were being called, because as far as the school were concerned, they had a missile in the school playground.
Drama.
However, even before the police and the bomb squad and everybody else in the military had arrived, the children had already turned up at the school and identified it as a long-range fuel tank from a jet bomber.
As you say, and they all knew their
We all
machinery,
knew.
they all
We
knew
were so
everything.
used to NATO aircraft flying overhead. You know, given enough time, we could have probably told you what plane it was off.
And the other theory that what you saw was no more than a helicopter.
Impossible.
You've got power lines there.
Yeah, and not only that,
They
but
were there then, weren't they?
But I mean, we were so used to helicopters. I mean, we were Sea Kings based at Naval US. Sorry,
make a lot of
RAF
noise.
Broady. They make a lot of noise. They're bright yellow, usually, and you know, or the green military ones. But that we sometimes saw Wessexes. But it certainly wasn't a helicopter. It certainly wasn't a Harrier. We'd love to have seen a Harrier taking off up there, you know, and if we had seen a Harrier taking off, then that would have been big news for us, because
You would have heard it anyway.
yeah, we'd have heard
For
it.
us.
So
You know,
in that area, what is actually in that area you think you saw the object, or you saw the object?
There's not a lot.
And did anybody actually go up afterwards?
Yeah, we
The
went
days
up.
after
We
the
went up
object?
the following day. There was myself, Randall Jones-Pugh, who wrote the Dyfed Enigma, and a reporter from the Western Telegraph called Hugh Turnbull. We went up there the following day because we actually came down here on the night of the sighting, but by then the weather conditions had deteriorated even further. It had got dark, it was impossible to see anything, so we came back the following day. And basically what's up there is bog. That's it. There is a sewage treatment works just over a bit,
Yes, sir.
but other than that, it's bog.
Were there any marks on
Yeah.
the ground, on the trees?
Absolutely nothing at all. Like I said, the only indication that the only physical indication that there may have been something there was a disturbed crossbar on that telegraph pole. But like I said, I can't swear that was done by the thing.
Yeah.
But the children did see people outside the craft walking on with gears and pointy, you know. With
I
these-
can only speak for myself,
Yeah.
and I didn't see any occupants. I can't comment on any of the children that.
But also different crafts that we've seen, different pictures. Is there a possibility that, you know,
No, right. If you look at the pictures, there are differences, there's no doubt. However, first of all, you've got to take into account we were terrible artists. You know, if you look at my picture, you can't even tell that they're trees, never mind a flying saucer. Yeah, so if you take a juvenile, undeveloped artistic talent, I mean, we were doing it in wax crayons, you know, none of us were Rembrandts or whatever. And you've also got to take into account as well, like I said, that children are notoriously unreliable witnesses. What is remarkable isn't so much the differences, but the fact that the pictures are so alike in so many features. If you peel away the frivolories of a juvenile imagination and then make the comparisons between the pictures.
Yeah, they do.
I mean, even if you look at the sorry, I've forgotten it. Zimbabwe? Who's it?
Zimbabwe.
Is it the Zimbabwean pictures? There are differences in the pictures. They're not carbon copies of each other.
down to
I mean,
artistic flair, really.
That's
mean-
a standard thing with witness testimonies.
yeah, but if you look at my picture, you'll see a long straight fuselage with rounded ends and a tiny little dome on top with a red light on top.
Yeah, can I come
That-
in there? Neil,
Yeah.
know you're mentioning Andrew Everton's site in Bishopston. Yeah, the drawing that he put, which was in the Evening Post, which was in August 1977,
Yeah.
at the end of the school holidays, it's almost identical to the one that you drew,
Yeah.
the shape.
However, I will
dome on the top.
say that now that do not look on my picture and think that is a totally accurate description of what I saw, a representation of what I saw.
Yeah.
There's another picture there, obviously by somebody who had a little bit more artistic talent than me, who doesn't blunt off the ends so much. You have more a classic flying saucer sort of cross profile with a more pronounced dome. I would rather have put my name to that picture
But there's different heights as well. Maybe somebody's seeing more of a dome, somebody's seeing more of it flat.
Yeah, don't forget they were seeing different times of the day as well, weren't they? So
Yeah,
maybe
Yeah.
it was a different shape. If it had turned, perhaps, if it's like a cigar shape could appear as a saucer, but if it sort of turned that way to the viewer,
Or slightly angled.
Yeah, exactly.
kind of
I mean, a saucer in
Especially-
cross-section is a
especially at a
cigar-shaped
distance.
object.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, to this day, I don't know whether what I saw was the side view of a saucer-shaped object, or whether I was actually seeing a cigar-shaped, torpedo-shaped object. And given that the visibility wasn't brilliant at the time, it was obviously quite sufficient enough to see what we were seeing. But when you consider that you've got a silvery grey object against a grey background sky, as it possibly a little bit worse than it is at the moment, then you're not going to get a perfect image. But there's no doubt in my mind whatsoever that we saw what we saw, and I just really firmly think that the only differences are purely down to artistic talent, and that is it. You're right.
I was going to say that when you're a child, you're that age, you could just draw a curve like that, and some next person you could do the same curve, but it would be more rounded.
Well, same thing. I mean, if you ask a child of that age to draw a house or a ship or a whatever,
exactly.
a more conventional object, you're not going to get an exact representation.
And your sighting was after school, after you've heard the stories as well?
This was 3:30, just after the bell had gone. I'd actually come up here because
You'd heard about them during the day through people.
and in my mind this was impossible. There was no way on earth that there was.
But you were going to see it even?
No, I.
Can I ask you something about the red light? Was that permanently on?
No, it was pulsating. Now, at the time I said flashing. Now, pulsating wasn't in my vocabulary at the time. So, but not flashing in the same sense as you see the old police lights flashing, where it's quite a quick. It was more a pulsation rather than a flash, and each one's, I would say, possibly one, maybe 2 flashes per second at the most, but it was very, very slow, and it was.
And did it stay like that until it took off again?
Well, with regards to the taking off, I don't know, because I mean, I saw it appear from behind the trees and then come back down. Now, I never saw it moving away from the area after that, and that was after that I'd already run from the area down to catch the taxi home. So.
Okay, if there's any other questions, we'll do it in Q&A later.
later on?
Let's do this time we go
In the dry
So,
and warm.
my car is soaking. I'm sure you agree with me. This is very sort of, I mean, people who are interested in this subject is very special. This is because we're actually on the spot for the rest of the day with one of the witnesses. Isn't that great? That's all.
Thank you very much.
Okay, now we're going to go back in. John Hanson's going to give us a presentation.
Because unfortunately I was a bit late. Where exactly did you see the...
Right. The children have been seeing the object. That sort of general area there.
Yes.
However, when I saw the object,
That was later in the day.
it was later on in the day.
Yeah.
It was behind the trees. It came up from behind the trees just there.
So you didn't see it like just there, you saw it above the tree line?
Yeah, it actually raised above the tree line.
Yeah.
And they all saw it on the ground?
There was some that saw it actually landed, and some had actually seen it hovering, depending on the time of the day that it was
So you,
seen.
in your mind, you're like, I'm going to sort this out and find out
Oh,
exactly.
yeah, I mean, you know, I'm always been a total skeptic. I don't believe anything unless I see it myself, and I honestly didn't expect to see anything myself. You know, that's.
So in that day then, you kind of moved from up there.
How's it going?
Yeah, but it was always. Each time it was seen by the children, it was seen in very, very close proximity, just outside the school perimeter.
Yeah.
It was almost as. I mean, I hate trying to imagine what was going through whoever the occupants were, what was going through their mind.
They just
But
wanted
it was
to get
all.
away. To me, it seems like they just want to get away, but they can't.
Yeah, but it was almost, and it was almost as if they were trying to keep at arm's reach from us.
Yes. But when you said, what went through my mind when you talked about all these weighty, patches and dry,
Let's stop, yeah.
I've got to say this.
We've really got to all go back in.
Oh, so that was after then. That was like the next day.
Okay.
Q&A later, there'll be plenty of time. Can I quickly get a